So the panel is going to talk about going native and is 5G accelerating operators' overall migration to the cloud, a subject close to all of our hearts. Here, the moderator is Inderpreet Kaur, and she is Senior Analyst at Omdia.
And a very welcome to everyone on this panel discussion, which talks about going native is 5G accelerating operators' overall migration to the cloud. I'm Inderpreet Kaur, a Senior Analyst with Omdia, and I'm your moderator for this session. Joining me on the panel are Martina, founder and CEO of Telness. Martina, if you're there, just wave, say hello.
Hey, I'm here.
Javier, Global Head Strategic Partnerships at Truphone.
Hello.
And Sami Syed, Executive Director of Security Systems and Information at Tunisie Telecom.
Hello, all.
All right, great. Now, before we move further, just a quick note for the audience. Please submit your questions through the Q&A tab. We would try to take them, as we progress with the discussions. If not, we will have, certainly 5-10 minutes set after the session to take those questions. Okay. Now, for every new generation in telecoms technology, 2G, 3G, 4G, or even with 5G, we've always tried to identify a killer app that could help telecom operators, to recoup their investments in that technology. But in the case of 5G, more than identifying a killer app, perhaps, it's the shift in the network architecture that is driving telcos to become successful in the changing operating environment. The cloud native architecture is seen as an enabler for telcos to deliver agile, flexible, and reliant network services. And this agility, flexibility, and reliability is also, it's seen as must-have capabilities from a network standpoint for 5G to deliver the varied mix of use cases that is expected to deliver. And the shift in cloud native is not only changing the network architecture or how the telcos operate, but is also acting as, a driving force for telcos to transform their own selves or, to go through their own digital transformation journeys. Now, with that, let me invite all our panelists to join me in this discussion and help us understand, with 5G, how telcos are driving new services or new business models that are born and scaled in cloud. Let me start with you, Javier, first. How, in your experience, this shift towards cloud native has driven Truphone's own digital transformation?
Yeah, so the way we see it is that 5G has become the catalyzer for bringing together people, devices, and networks in a fully digital connectivity space. And for these, operators, as you were saying, need to go through a digital transformation to provide the required agility and flexibility that this new scenario, requires. So what is amazing is that even though the telco sector is a quite techy sector, so we use the technology quite a lot, it still is a big challenge for most of the operators to go through this digital transformation. What is a nonsense today is that when you buy a smartphone or when you buy a camera to integrate and monitor remotely your house, you need to go to a shop, or a lot of the operators still force you to go to a shop to get a plastic card, to get a SIM, and to activate the connectivity using these SIMs. And all this in a world where you can open an account, a bank account, directly from your phone, or you can reserve a car sharing, you can open the car and you can drive the car directly, managing only directly on your phone. So that doesn't make sense, that in a world where you can do everything on the mobile, still you need to go to a shop because there is no digital way, that you can activate and you can start using your services. And what we see is that for this digital transformation, what is key, is all the implementation about a cloud-based architectures and also how you foresee and how you develop software-centric services for this kind of digital world. We foresaw this at the time that we started to work with Apple in the implementation of enabling eSIM connectivity on the iPads. And I don't know if you know that when you have an iPad, when you have an iPad, you don't need to have Wi-Fi, or you don't need to go and buy a SIM to enable connectivity on the device. So over there, you can install the eSIM, or you can activate a plan directly from the device, either if you are traveling and you are abroad and you don't need to go to a shop to get a SIM, or if you buy a new iPad. So the experience that you get as a user, just unboxing the iPad and starting to get the connectivity directly over there, is what most of the customers and end users require. So we saw, that this new paradigm, this new way of working with the customers could have a big impact if we were not ready, and that we could multiply our user base for more than 100 times fold of what we had at that moment, and we needed to move into this digital transformation. So we needed to prepare for this growth. And to give you some figures, in 2018, we have around 50,000 subscribers. And at this moment, we have overpassed the 25 million subscriptions that we have in our telco infrastructure. So this is more than 500 times the volume of SIMs that we had back in 2018. So what a cloud-based infrastructure and architecture has enabled us is, first of all, to provide the agility and the flexibility that will enable us to scale. So we knew that we had to grow, but we were not knowing at what pace. And with a cloud-based solution, we have been able to achieve this growth and manage this growth efficiently. But also the other point that you were raising about ensuring the reliability that our customers were demanding, and having your redundant and distributed platforms, and in this case, mobile architecture, will enable us, to provide this redundancy that customer wanted to require. But also the other point that I wanted to make is that our focus and approach on software-centric services has enabled us to expose all our connectivity infrastructure and connectivity services directly to our customers using a single API call. So any of our customers can install an eSIM or activate a connectivity plan with a few calls directly, without knowing anything about telecoms and not being a telecom industry. So you can be in another sector, like in the travel sector, and start providing connectivity to your travelers directly using a software-centric approach. And another area where we have been putting quite a lot of focus as well is in building our orchestration platform that enables how to manage all this complexity that you have on the new environments, where, as an example today, you are able to migrate all your digital life, all your configuration of your apps from an old phone to a new one, but still today you cannot transfer all your connectivity. And this is becoming a big challenge with the new devices like the iPhone 14, where now you don't have a SIM slot. So what you need is to be able to transfer, all this configuration in a single click. And with our orchestration platform, we are able to manage this. So moving the infrastructure to the cloud has enabled us to cope with all this growth, and also having a software-centric approach is enable us to develop new solutions that enables our customers to have fully digital journeys in their connectivity space. I cannot hear you.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
I'm on mute. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for those insights, Javier. And I'll perhaps, pass the same question to Martina. Telness, again, is a digital-first mobile operator. And perhaps if you can also, share how cloud has enabled this transformation for you.
Sure, I will go in, on sound in one other device because it was lagging some in the connectivity for me. So I'm trying at this point. Maybe it's no good because then it's.
We can hear you all right.
Yeah, so let's try and you see me at the same
Yep.
time. If it doesn't work, let me know and I go into the other device.
I think it's working perfect.
So we're a MVNO in Sweden, so a digital first B2B player targeting the SMB market and also fully cloud-based since start. And I think Javier here has some good insights in terms of, like, I think it's a lot of innovation happening on a global basis at this point, and 5G is enabling a lot of things, and it's very, very beneficial for MVNOs that is a little bit more like, the benefit at this point is how to scale fast and how technology can enable you to actually differentiate and how to enable you to utilize opportunities that are out there at this point. And technology is a crucial part of how to use those opportunities out there at this point. And the large operators have, of course, a lot of benefits since they're building the network in many cases, obviously. But their legacy in IT and infrastructure is a challenge to use it for the actual end user and the customer experience in the end. And I think there's a lot of benefits for enterprises and for MTM, etc., as the previous speaker talked about. But for the opportunities to go the whole way to the end user and like the actual need for like the regular services in terms of connectivity and subscriptions or PBXs, etc., there's a lot of innovation still needs to be done in terms of the actual just customer journey. So how to use connectivity services in the end and how to be onboarded and to have the same expectations as we now have in other industries, like banking, like when you log into a Spotify account or a Netflix account, it's like 1, 2, 3 clicks and self-service is intuitive, and we're not there in the telco industry in most markets yet. So basically what we launched a B2B operator, are fully digital and optimized. Like we have one salesperson and like a very, very small customer service team, because the end user really do everything themselves through self-service, and are the highest customer experience ratings, have the highest customer experience ratings in Sweden still, which has been a challenge to do both at the same time. But I think it's because the market is there in Sweden, and the end users are mature enough and do want to have a digital experience if it is good enough. And then to have how cloud then can enable us to grow and do that scalable, both with our tech, but also to have like a global experience from start. Like we're only a Swedish player, but we do route local calls for our B2B PBX in, I think it's 62 countries already, because we can use our cloud services and just route it locally in each country without having to put down on-prem hosting of routing the calls in each market, which is it's huge amounts of opportunities for smaller players to use technology to grow big and do good things. I think I'll leave it there. I think I've talked a lot of time now. Yes.
Yeah. Perhaps, that will guide me into our next question. And one thing that is becoming clear with this is, well, telcos want to transform into digital operators. And one key part of this is for them to deliver more value to their customers, either to B2B customers or to B2C customers. And they want to shift away from just the connectivity providers. And I think cloud is enabling that transformation, or perhaps that desire for the telcos. Let me bring in Sami. How do you think this is playing out for Tunisia Telecom? Is cloud helping in delivering more value to your customers?
Thank you, Inderpreet. Thank you for having me. Let me, before talking about or before answering this question, let me give a little insight about 5G and cloud in Tunisia. 5G is planned to be deployed around the second semester or second half of 2023. It's not already regulated, and I think the first network will be deployed in early 2024. Now, about the cloud in Tunisia is not that much developed. It's only 3 providers. Let me say 4 because the fourth has not its own infrastructure, but it's in early stages, and we are trying to help businesses digitalize their services and their activities through our cloud services and through our data center services. We are, as the first telecom provider in Tunisia, Tunisie Telecom. Since 2014, we deployed our first data center, and we provide cloud services to businesses in Tunisia. And at the same time, we have developed our internal cloud services with our private cloud, and we try to deploy value-added services through cloud infrastructure, internal cloud infrastructure. So we try to be 5G ready by deploying our internal technical data centers, or should I say, because we have already an IT data center for management systems, for CRM, for ERP, for human capital system. But at the same time, we have deployed an internal data center for technical services. Now about what we are planning to have as services through deploying this cloud infrastructure. We are planning to give the ability to our network to be able to host the 5G core network once the regulation is in place, and we are planning to deploy all verticals and MVNO through this cloud infrastructure. And then already we have at least 3 MVNOs that are working on our network, and we help other verticals to deploy their infrastructures and to deploy their service through our data centers, waiting to 5G, but still with 4G we are already cloud ready for all kind of use cases or verticals who should deploy their networks, their private networks. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Sami. So perhaps there are 2 views here. One is from a telco's perspective, and another is from an MVNO's perspective. As Martina, you said, you won't hesitate to leverage a public cloud provider and to topple the existing business models that are more prevalent with telcos. If you have to go global, you will not consider spending a lot of capex in rolling out network in a new geography. And perhaps, that is where you think the power of public cloud can come in. Whereas if I look at traditional telecom business, they still are very protective about this debate on public and private cloud. Their adoption of private public cloud, I think for certain workloads, it's working very well. For certain workloads, they're still experimenting, they're facing challenges with adopting the public cloud. Maybe, it's just a question to both you and Sami. How do you see the role of public cloud providers? Where do you think you will partner with them? And where do you think, you will still want to have your own business assets?
So I think I can start a bit with this because we have decided a strategy where we are focusing on Swedish, like the Swedish market with our MVNO, but still Swedish companies that could be global, so could that exist in several markets and still want to have connectivity in several places, because people are starting to work remote. They are in many places at the same time, but still are a Swedish operator at first, but instead then going global because we had to build a lot of technology to enable a digital experience. We tried to go with other third-party solutions like enablers, etc., but they didn't enable us to be as digital or self-service as we wanted. So we built a lot of tech and started to get a lot of inbound interest from both larger operators that are launching sub-brands or challenger brands, etc., but also other MVNOs, and decided to then go international, global with the technology instead, and enable others to, well, benefit from what we've built basically, and to migrate into the cloud. And there's a lot of learnings based on that, because we have some other operators running, both MVNOs and operators running on our technology in other countries now, or in Sweden and ongoing in other countries, to be honest. And we had to build a lot of wrappers because they do not want to move everything to the cloud. So that's a big learning. They want some things on-prem because of security reasons, or because of different reasons based on their own platforms or local legislations, etc. But they still want to move some parts into the cloud at the same time to use the benefits of scaling and costs, etc. So it's a very interesting hybrid version for the larger telecoms players progressing out there, I would say, which it's both pros and cons. Like if you're an MVNO, you don't have the same rules applied to you as if you have the actual network yourself in terms of data, etc. And you can choose to put the barrier of what data you need and what data can still be used more fully into the cloud. But the large operators still, from what I am in discussions with now, all is talking about hybrid solutions.
Can I answer
Yes,
to this
please.
question? Okay. In Tunisia, our regulation doesn't allow businesses to host their workloads or all kinds of workloads outside the country, especially when it comes to personal and unidentifiable data. So what we are helping with businesses is hosting and for MVNOs, hosting their data in our cloud and our data centers, And in the same time, we provide connectivity services. We provide monitoring services for their IP systems and for their communication systems through SD-WAN. And we provide as well security monitoring, security services, managed services to our business partners. And that's a way to monetize at least our cloud systems and our data center, our public cloud system. So it's a big concern for businesses to not be allowed to host their workloads outside the country, but it's an opportunity for us at the same time.
And Javier, please feel free to chime in if you have any thoughts on that. I think there are a couple of questions as well in the Q&A box on what sort of workloads are moving to the cloud.
To the cloud implementation. I mean, in our case, we're a mobile operators in 9 countries, so we have our own data centers in each of these countries also because of the regulation, as Martina was saying. And I think that having a hybrid approach where it gives you flexibility to grow as your requirements are needed, but at the same time to keep with all the regulations is basic. And this is the way that we do this.
So I think I hear you. Perhaps, you know, it might vary based on your own local situation. It's perhaps, you know, still guarded a lot by regulations, and that is something which determines how you want to approach hybrid or multi-cloud, or perhaps, you know, public versus your own private or on-prem hosting. So, well, I'll come back to the discussions. I deviated a bit from the topic of digital transformation and, you know, telcos driving into digital enablers, perhaps looking at, you know, getting into platform play or becoming ecosystem enablers. In your initial note, Javier, you mentioned about open APIs, and then it perhaps bring the topic about, you know, when you are trying to become a digital service provider, or you are trying to enable an ecosystem, you're trying to work with multiple partners. And what do you think, what sort of impact cloud can have on enabling this, perhaps, you know, from partner perspective?
Multiple cases. I mean, the first thing is about having a global reach. So exposing these capabilities in a cloud then enables you to offer services all over the world. And this is important for us. I mean, we are a global mobile operator, but also we wanted to enable these capabilities at a global scale. And at the other side, to have the flexibility to deploy new services much quicker, the time to market. Because, I mean, if you have the solution in the cloud, then any new functionality, you can expose it to your customers and partners all over the world, and you don't need to go side by side doing this deployment. So these 2 areas is where it gives us a lot of flexibility to provide this capability to our partners. And remember that when you start to provide connectivity services to companies that are not telco businesses, they don't have too much knowledge about the technology and about the connectivity, and you need to facilitate this and make it really easy for them, okay, to embrace connectivity and start to integrating connectivity with their own services.
I think just to add also, if I'm allowed, I think one thing to think of also when you talk about both 5G and cloud, etc., is there's a lot of opportunities for MVNOs out there of services and how to see the end user and end customers not only as person, but like a user or like an entity of some sort. And a lot of those are using much less data per user, like it's MTM SIM cards or eSIM cards, etc. And I mean, for MVNOs, the largest cost for most are the data to the actual MNO and the network operator. So the opportunities to launch services and products on a global basis that do not use as much data and can scale fast and have new revenue streams is huge now, because that's the business model becomes totally different from those type of opportunities that are scaling quite dramatically now with 5G, and are a lot of opportunities for MNOs, both in terms of its little data, which makes the business case better, but also for the technology to be of benefit, because it's innovation you need to build from scratch, where we have better opportunities than the players with legacy.
And how does this impact your business case, Sami? So perhaps you are able to deliver more value to your B2B customers or B2C customers, or are you moving away from connectivity? One key thing that keeps coming up is telcos' desire to get into the enterprise space, and perhaps, you know, they say, or they emphasize a lot that 5G is going to drive that for them. Do you see it in the same way? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, in my opinion, 5G will be the network of networks, and we no longer will be only a telecom provider or mobile network provider. Will be digital services provider. We already started delivering cloud services and digital managed services, like monitoring, like security managed services. But with 5G, I think partnering with different verticals, with new use cases, like healthcare, like in smart cities, smart buildings, smart homes, with fixed wireless access providers. So we can monetize our network infrastructure and our cloud systems, and maybe we will have the opportunity to develop more and more our data center, and because now we are still in our first unit, first building. It's limited to 600 square meters, and I think it will be developed more and more with a second or a third building or space. We have already deployed disaster recovery about 90 kilometers from the first one, and we use the load sharing between both to provide secure cloud services. I think and I believe that the future is in providing digital services and no longer limit our services in providing only telecoms and mobile and voice services, because the world is moving, and there are, I think, will not be able to manage the huge number of verticals and of private 5G networks by our only by being an MNO. So we need to move to a network of networks and a provider of digital services instead of being only telecom provider of network and voice services.
Thank you, Sami. So I think we've talked a lot about the opportunities and how this entire transition is helping telcos to tap into new ways of monetizing different services. Perhaps my last question here is if you can highlight some challenges as well, in your own transformation journeys. What were the challenges that you faced while embracing cloud, and what lessons you would want to share with other telcos out there? I'll perhaps we can start with Javier, you first.
Yeah, okay. No, I think that coming back to the last point from Sami regarding to the complexity that you start having when you do all these integrations in the cloud is that you need to become an orchestrator, because you are using your own infrastructure, your own mobile capabilities, but at the same time, you need to integrate with other operators and other services. And this is what Truphone has been doing during the last years. But I think that also another of the big challenges, besides building this orchestration platform and ensuring that you can provide homogeneous service levels, okay, across different areas and in the different countries, is about the knowledge of the end user about the new technology. I mean, you see that as an example, an iPhone since 2018 had already an eSIM, so you could activate a subscription fully digital since a lot of years ago, and still a lot of the people, the end users, don't know that they have an eSIM in their own device. And this knowledge, okay, needs to be worked not only by device makers but also the mobile operators, to make it simpler for the end user. The example I was giving before, that is still in a lot of the, and it is amazing that in a lot of the operators, they still give you a plastic card with a QR code for you to scan, and you need to go to the shop to scan the QR code for installing an eSIM, where you can do everything digitally, either on the web, because you want to buy a new connectivity service, or directly on the phone, okay, with an app. So all these things are part of the challenges that you are having. And then the other area where I see still a big challenge is on the IoT space, because the standards, I mean, still for our device makers, it's quite complicated to provide connectivity on their devices on a global scale, and having the freedom to choose the operator, okay, that they want when they deploy a device. And the new standards, even though we are working quite closely with the ESMA on the new consumer IoT standard, is taking more time than expected, okay, to become real and start to provide this capability to our customers. So those will be the two main challenges on our side.
Martina, would you like to chime in on that?
Yeah. Well, I agree with Javier of the challenges. So I think I could not repeat the same things, to add one thing, and that's, I mean, there's a lot of investments to be done to raise the bars in terms of standards, and both in terms of digitalization and to use 5G's opportunities, etc. But I think many are lacking innovation that also the end users are willing to pay more for. So to find like new revenue streams of the different innovation, not just to improve the customer experience, because that is obvious, it's going to happen in the end, but also a way to have that same innovation or same investments to actually generate more revenue or ARPU per customer. Because I mean, just having 5G on your subscription I would say will become a standard quite soon, but will it raise the willingness to pay? I'm not so sure. And just to find that whole how to innovate in a way where you also can benefit from it, and to argue different types of investments into it. In the end, I think both MVNOs and larger telcos do have a big challenge with.
I think the challenges for Tunisie Telecom will be at least sharing the infrastructure that already we deployed with towers and buildings. Once a 5G network will be deployed, we can partner with we make a partnership with the MNO or with the MVNO to use the same infrastructure, because we have already a huge geographical the distributed infrastructure. We can as well use the legacy network. We have already 24 departments in Tunisia, in which we deployed around 200 to 300 switches, and which are no longer working. So with the edge cloud, with to make the intelligence to make the cloud for radio use, to make it close to the customer or to the user. We can deploy the edge cloud in our legacy buildings, and we can as well host the private 5G networks in our buildings. This way we can monetize all our real estate that we already have built in all around the country. We can as well, as Javier already said, we can use the orchestration and monitoring of network as an expertise that we can make it available to all the partners who would deploy their own use cases and their own verticals.
Thank you, everyone. And I think I hear you all, and maybe with 5G and with cloud, there are multiple ways to looking at what they can do for a telco, or what they can deliver for a telco. But what I can walk back with is, number one, as you highlighted, Martina, there is a lot of scope for innovation. ARPUs are stagnant. You cannot be paying same for the same service, and that cannot drive revenues. There is a lot of scope for innovation in services. There is an opportunity to improving your cost base with cloud scaling, and then scaling bring its own cost benefits. And the third, last one, is perhaps the ability to experiment or challenge the existing business models. With that, maybe I can conclude this interesting discussion. Thank you all for joining us, and I will pass it back to any. I don't see any questions submitted here. So I think I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, I think there might have been a question, and then I messed it up, actually, unintentionally, obviously unintentionally. Yes, the question was, what do you see moving to the cloud, and what components stay in physical environments? I don't think that's appealed to anybody, and we're out of time. So maybe we should.
I think it's a different question depending on what market. I think the biggest reason for it is like local regulations, etc. So I think it's quite different based on that per market. So I'm not sure there's a general answer to that question from my side, at least.
Okay, well, it just remains for me to thank you very much indeed. I thought that was a good, interesting session on what is quite a kind of vexed subject, really. So thank you to all of you for your time and your input. Thank you to our sponsors, all of our speakers and panelists today, and of course, to everyone who attended. Thank you so much.